Hello everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. It's been a while since I made a public video. I just wanted to talk about the concept of Palantiring and also go through about 20 different potential candidates that I have mentioned before and talk about what's going on now. Are we scared? What should we do? The idea is that it really hasn't been that bad, honestly. I don't know why people are getting extremely fearful when honestly the market is pretty close to all-time highs, when small caps look like they could be having a breakout, when everything seemed like they are still holding levels and everything seemed like they're still doing okay, but people are extremely scared, not just of crypto, but the overall market in general. I want to show you, this is the Bitcoin bull market from 2015 all the way to 2017. And during the entire bull market here, you have moves that went from 800 all the way down to 400. Yet move a monthly candle all the way from 1200 all the way down to 800. This is not without volatility. You have basically a price that went from 3,000 all the way down to about 1,800. This whole bull market has been parabolic, and the entire time it's been causing a lot of fear. The target that this market has ultimately made to was the 2.272, which actually I looked across a lot of various types of bull markets, and 2.272 log fib actually tends to be one of those that are where things are topping. Sometimes it goes a little bit underneath of that, sometimes it goes a little beyond that. But in general, when it gets to a parabolic bull cycle and when it hits the 2.272 area, it's not a bad area to start taking profits, just because I see this across the board here. I also saw that the same thing happened with the Doge bull market last cycle, 2020, 2021, Amazon cycle through 2021 as well. I just keep seeing NVIDIA just recently hit 2.272 last year, and that was kind of a little bit more like a cycle top, if you will. And it did nothing for a whole year. So I think 2.272 is actually a pretty important level here. Now, the whole concept of Palantiring, when I came up with it back in July, was whenever you end up breaking a higher retracement level, such as a 0.76 and 0.86, sometimes you build up a lot more acceleration and things just kind of get a little bit more parabolic afterwards. I saw a very similar character with Palantir when it was around the 30s, when it was kind of between 0.61 and 0.786. I'm going to pull up the Palantir chart here real quick and kind of show you what I meant by that. When I was looking at the Palantir chart, and when things are just kind of stuck between the 0.61 and 0.786, and eventually was able to break through, it started around August or so, I thought that it was going to hit some escape velocity and it's going to make some all-time highs and it's going to get pretty parabolic. And sure enough, it did that, right? It broke through 0.76 here and 0.86 here very convincingly. It just kind of kept on going higher, higher, higher. Right now, we're even at the 1.618. Right now, the Bollinger Band is still expanding. Right now, we could have potentially enough room to kind of go up to some of these higher fib levels here still, as far as I'm concerned, because this is still a bull market. And a lot of gains have been made over the last 15 months because of this breakout of these higher fib retracement levels of 0.76 and 0.86, and things just kind of went parabolic afterwards. Now, looking at this, I really thought to myself a few months ago, I was like, hey, is there any other stock here? Yes, I understand a lot of people are going to be criticizing, saying, hey, you are looking at different sectors, they are different businesses, they don't really mean much if you just compare one to another. To me, I don't think so. I think liquidity flows, I think algorithms, all these things are very, very similar. And I think that all of these, if these are really truly risk-on assets, if they're going to go into a more parabolic bull phase, generally their technicals actually look very, very similar. There's going to be some variations in between, but I'm going to show you here in a second in terms of what I meant by that. One of the original Palantiring candidates that I had was Robinhood, and Robinhood really was a candidate as soon as, I'm going to show you here, as soon as you really broke above the 0.786 and broke about the 0.86. I really started to think that Robinhood was a Palantiring candidate really around here when it broke the 0.76 and 0.86. I thought it was going to keep going, and certainly has been keeping going afterwards for many, many months. And this is one of those that has potential to continue to go up on a parabolic bull phase. It's about to hit the 1.272 here, at some point. I do think some of these potential targets up here could potentially be hit this cycle. And this is one of those Palantiring candidates that has worked out extremely well. One that has not worked out so well is Coinbase. Coinbase has really been extremely stubborn, and Coinbase has really been having a hard time really sustaining its breakout of the 0.86. Although it broke about the 0.76 here with flying colors, it just had a hard time breaking about the 0.86 for whatever reason, decided to consolidate here, up and down, up and down. Now, you might say, what kind of level is here that's holding as support? Where are we consolidating between the previous all-time high and this level right there? Well, first of all, we don't quite have that Bollinger expansion because price has been doing nothing over the last few months. So I'm going to turn off the Bollinger Band here. I'm going to turn off the Ichimoku Cloud. And on the Ichimoku Cloud, you're going to see that there's a blue line over here that's been serving as support extremely well for a very long time. I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison here between the Coinbase chart here with the Palantir chart. And you're going to see something pretty interesting here. And I'm going to turn off all this stuff and I'm going to put up the Ichimoku here. What I'm seeing here is I see a very, very similar pattern where it's been hugging this blue and red line here. We call it the Tenkan and the Kijin. We've had a little bit of a up and down of a range bound kind of thing here, which we did here for Palantir. Although for Palantir, it just went a lot faster, right? Boop, 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 boop. And it just hit this bullish engulfing candle. It just ended up tabbing the Tenkan and the blue line here for about 3-4 months. And then it just went up like crazy, right? Coinbase just been a lot more of a drawn out process, a lot more drawn out than I would like it to be. But so far, it's been making higher highs and higher lows, and it's been holding the Tenkan here as support, very similar to this area over here. And everybody in the 20s really wanted to sell. When things went up, everybody was scared. They wanted to take profits. But the reality is this was a launching pad. It has a very similar morphology where we're at right now. I cannot say that Coinbase is the same as Palantir as it was over here. There's no absolutes that I can really say, right? But the reality is I see a lot of similarities between this consolidation over here and this consolidation over here. And this whole area, because it's been forming higher highs and higher lows, very similar to here, it really does make me think that this is reaccumulation, kind of like it was over here. Now, ultimately, it went up a lot higher in this served as a launching pad over here, so we'll see whether or not Coinbase ends up doing the same. We don't quite have that Bollinger expansion quite just yet, but we are still above the 0.76, which makes me hopeful that this is going to be a pretty decent stock moving forward on a higher time frame. And on a lower time frame, I don't know what the heck it's going to do. I mean, it's just been going sideways, just been bouncing up and down, and I don't know. Like I can tell you, what my thoughts are, on a lower time frame, but none of that really matters. It just back tested the 50-week moving average and held it perfectly. Right now, it's stuck between the 20 and 50. I don't know what the heck it wants to do short term, but to me, it doesn't really matter because higher time frame still has that look, and I'm still, relatively hopeful here for Coinbase. Now, a couple other ones I also mentioned too. Tesla did end up breaking above all these higher fit levels, right? It's making all-time highs. It's forming a third candle so far above the previous cycle high over here, which is not a bearish thing. It did break through the 0.76 and 0.86 here with this green candle here, which initially I thought that, hey, you're going to push it up like that. You're going to start getting a bullish expansion. This thing's going to start Palantiring. But instead, because things have gone nowhere over the last 2 or 3 months, you actually get a little bit of Bollinger contraction here. So I want to see a little bit more impulsivity here to expand Bollinger Band before I can say that Tesla is Palantiring. With that said, I think this is still a relatively bullish stock. Now, another stock that has been Palantiring that has been worked out extremely well is SOFI. SOFI is a stock that has broken about the 0.76 and the 0.86 and it's been having full Bollinger expansion here, still to the upside and to the downside. It looks like it wants to hit some of the targets up above. It's just been having a little bit of a slow area here because all the other stocks, all the other market, including crypto, everything else is correcting except for SOFI. SOFI is just kind of basically wanting to keep going up here. With full Bollinger expansion, this is a pretty impulsive look for SOFI. So I do think that some of these higher target 1.272, 1.44 potentially, and even 1.618 here potentially, they might get hit sometime in 2026, maybe 2027, I don't know. But because we still have a pretty strong bull trend, I am still pretty bullish on SOFI. Now, another stock that I've also thought was pretty interesting, and I do have a position in this, is AFRM. AFRM, I think, was a candidate that I had originally, but with the caveat that it has to break above the 0.786. Guess what? It has not broken above the 0.786 yet, quite just yet, right? It is trying to do that, but the reality is, it's just consolidating sideways and underneath the 0.76 and building up more energy. It's holding this level over here, right? What is this level that you're speaking of? What kind of level could it be? Well, let's put up the Ichimoku here again. You can see how it's holding the tank in here perfectly fine. You remember when I was pulling the Palantir chart over here, it has a very similar morphology, except this is more of a drawn out process that is holding the area over here perfectly fine, right? If you just overlay the fit levels even, you can see how there's a lot of parallel between the two when things are above the blue line, the Tenkan over here with AFRM, and how Palantir was also holding that area over there. And you can see how basically it's happening inside the golden pocket, inside the 0.76 and the 0.618, like it is over here, right? Very similar area over here. This could actually serve as a launching pad for it to make some all-time highs here, maybe in 2026, maybe in 2027. We will see. But this is a slower, basically, chart compared to what Palantir has been doing. But I'm still pretty bullish on a stock like AFRM. I have to be completely honest. When I'm seeing Palantir candidates like this, when I'm seeing AFRM doing what it's doing right now, consolidating under, above the Tenkan, looking like it's serving as a launching pad, I just don't think recession is coming. I just don't think a stock market crash is coming. I think there's enough liquidity to push things up a lot higher. Because when I see AFRM, which is basically a very economically sensitive stock, I just have a hard time really seeing AFRM doing well, forming higher highs and higher lows, and with a recession coming and with the bull market like being over. I just have a hard time seeing that. One that has captured a lot of people's attention here is IREN. Why did IREN push up so high and so fast? Because it's been rejected here and the 0.76 here for a whole year. And when it finally pushed through, it just went like crazy. Went all the way up to 1.272, right? You see how when it breaks the 0.76 and if it breaks above the 0.86, things just keeps going parabolic, right? Are we going to keep going up a lot higher? The answer is yes. Is it going to happen immediately? The answer is no. Why is that? Well, we are hitting a wall here at 1.272, which is a pretty important fit level. We do still have a full bullish band expansion, mind you. So this is still a very bullish stock. Now, the problem is we're hitting 1.272, which is a strong resistance zone. We're also way above the upper Bollinger Band. We even haven't really touched it last month. And this month, we've just been hanging out in space. The upper Bollinger Band right now is around 50. If it goes down to 50, I think it's reasonable. But so far, it's just hanging out in space. Now, if you're comparing this with what Palantir did, when it hits the 1.272, I can just basically show you, if I take off the Ichimoku here, and you can see how whenever it hit the 1.272, you have a very, very similar thing that happened in Palantir, where you basically have one candle here that's just way outside the upper Bollinger Band, which is basically this candle over here, and another candle over here, which end up being green and push above the 1.272. I'm not sure if that's what's going to happen in IREN, but basically what this candle did is it basically tagged the upper Bollinger Band so it's not as overextended anymore, and then it got a really extremely good reaction and just pushed it above the 1.272. Here, are we going to go all the way down to 50 and tag the upper Bollinger Band? Possible. Do we get a good reaction all of a sudden, form a green candle over 1.272 once a month? Possible. Is that something that has to work out perfectly just like Palantir did? No. But I do think that right now we're a little overextended. It can come back and tag the upper Bollinger Band and close underneath the 1.272, and we might need a little bit more time to kind of push through that. But just kind of give you an idea in terms of what Palantir did, in terms of what IREN is doing right now. I think it's a pretty decent comparison between the two, right? That is my sixth one. My seventh one is, unfortunately, still hasn't really worked out yet, is CleanSpark. Why hasn't CleanSpark worked out well? The reason why is because it hasn't really pushed about the 1.272. Well, sorry, not 1.272. It hasn't really pushed about the 0.618. Got rejected here by 0.618, matter of fact, right? If we push through, then we would have had a Bollinger Band expansion. Initially, it looked like it was going to have a Bollinger Band expansion here, but nope, we decided to go sideways. And we have, so far in November, a little bit of a bearish engulfing candle over here. although the month is not closed yet, so I don't think that the candle necessarily would look this, bearish. But it is having bullish band contraction here. It wants to build a little bit more energy, maybe even go back to 0.618. I don't think it necessarily have to do that because it's holding the weekly Ichimoku right here perfectly fine, by the way. But I'm just going to go back here to the monthly here. I don't think it necessarily has to go back to 0.618 all the way. If it does, it's not the end of the world, right? Because it is having a hard time breaking above both the cloud here in 0.6786. Why is that? If it breaks above that, then it's going a lot higher. Then you're talking about some crazy targets like 1.272. You're talking about $100, right? We're not ready to do that quite just yet. So what do we have instead? We have a bunch of a contraction, and we're still underneath the 0.786. We're still consolidating. We're still deciding what to do. But with that said, I still think a potential trend change for it eventually. It just hasn't really happened quite just yet. Another one is Galaxy Digital. What is Galaxy Digital doing? Galaxy Digital is basically still Palantiring. The only thing that's really holding it back is trying to break above the previous all-time high over here. Not previous all-time high, sorry, the cycle high, I should say. $38, having a hard time breaking through that, coming back down. It was also one of those candles just way outside the upper Bollinger Band, and cooling down here is not the end of the world. It's actually healthy. It's been hitting higher highs and higher lows. This is quite healthy, actually. But because it's done nothing over the last month or two, you start to have a little bit of Bollinger Band contraction here. That doesn't really bother me because it broke through the 0.618, 0.786, and 0.86 here, these higher fit level, pretty convincingly. I think it's just had to cool down this big giant candle over here and consolidate here a little bit, form a higher low before going up higher. But so far, this is a pretty bullish looking stock because of higher highs and higher lows and a relative, bullish expansion, as well as breaking above all these, higher fit levels here. So I'm pretty bullish on Galaxy Digital. I wish I could buy more. I just don't have enough money to buy everything. Shopify, very bullish stock. Broke about the 0.786, 0.86 here very convincingly over the last 4 or 5 months. Right now, we're having a little bit of a hard time challenging the previous all-time high over here. Once it breaks, I think this thing is going to end up keeping exploding to the upside here. But so far, we're consolidating sideways over here with 6 green candles over here and 1 red candle here to cool off things. Not a bad thing, right? Well, you initially have a little bit of bullish expansion. Now it's kind of cooling off because there's just 1 candle, but 1 candle does not make a trend. This whole trend is still very powerful, and it looks like it wants to continue to Palantiring after it breaks that previous all-time high over here, and we are just all kind of waiting on that. One that I do think that is Palantiring, and this is also part of the reason why I cannot really be that bearish on the overall market, is TQQQ. What is TQQQ doing? It's got a big arrow, which I'm going to erase. My point is this: it has broken about the 0.786 and 0.86 over here. Initially, we did break above, but we had a hard time breaking above the previous all-time high. Decided came back and grabbed liquidity, came all the way back down to the 0.5, hit the low Bollinger Band. Next thing you know, have extremely good reaction, and you have a full Bollinger Band expansion. Right now, you broke through 0.678, 0.786, 0.86. All of these higher fit levels has been broken, and guess what it's doing right now? Bollinger Band expansion, all-time highs, Palantiring. This is one example as to why I cannot be too bearish on the market right now. Looking at nets, this is what stock that I'll also have a small position in, is making all-time high. It's broken above the 0.76, 0.86. It's making all-time high, full Bollinger Band expansion. This thing is going to keep going. This thing is Palantiring. Nobody's really talking about it. I also want to talk about AMD real quick here. What is AMD doing? Well, it's got a full Bollinger Band expansion. Right? Price simply a little bit too fast about the Bollinger Band. It has to cool down, attack the Bollinger Band. It's not the end of the world. What did it do? Well, it had a green candle last month, broke about the 0.76, broke about the 0.86. Right now it's forming all-time highs. It looks like it wants to keep going. It's just waiting for the Bollinger Band to expand further and attack the Bollinger Band so it can do its thing. Now, FUTU is another one that is very straightforward here. It initially has full Bollinger Band expansion, but it's starting to decelerate here a little bit from previous all-time high. It's got a little bit of Bollinger Band contraction here, but it's broken about the 0.76 and 0.86. I think it's just a matter of time before this thing just continues to push up a lot higher. It's been maybe waiting for the rest of the Chinese market. I don't know, but it looks like it's getting primed to really break out. If it decides to come back to the 0.86 here, back test it before going higher, that's not the end of the world. It already did that over here back in last month. So I think it's building a lot of energy here. It's trying to push through. Now, the Another candidate that I was showing you previously was Bitfarms. What Bitfarms is doing right now from previous cycle high, cycle low, it has a hard time breaking above the 0.76 and the 0.86. Now remember what I said, if it breaks above these levels, it's going to make all-time high. Guess what happens? First time challenging it, got rejected. Not the end of the world. What's happening right now? Bollinger Band expansion. What's happening right now? Price is still hugging the upper Bollinger Band, is waiting for upper Bollinger Band to expand further so it can go up a lot higher. This thing right now is building up more energy underneath the 0.786 over here. I think it's going to break. I just don't know which path is going to come back down a little bit lower to 0.618 before going up higher. Is it finding already some pretty solid grounding over here before going up higher? I usually talk about these stocks, by the way. I've been making like weekly, weekend videos with Danny's Patreon. If you guys want to check it out, that's fine. If not, that's fine too. But there are some levels that it's trying to hold right here. Maybe this is it, and maybe it consolidates a little bit more and push through, or maybe it takes a path down to 0.618 and then push through. Hard to say for sure. All I know is that this is a bull trend, because this is a higher high compared to that. This is a higher low compared to that. It looks like it wants to keep going. I just don't know exact path where it wants to. And until it breaks about the 0.786 and 0.86, it's not quite got the escape velocity to go up parabolically. But it's looking pretty decent. This is a pretty decent setup. It just needs to cool off the recent move that it just made, which is not anything bad. TeraWulf is another candidate. What is TeraWulf doing? Well, TeraWulf is having a hard time breaking above the 0.786. It's the first time there's ever challenged it. If it breaks above the 0.786, then it has a much bigger potential to go and make some all-time highs here and go Palantiring. But it's my first time challenging it. It's waiting for Bollinger Band to expand. But guess what? The Bollinger Band is still expanding all the way down to the downside here too. It's a pretty parabolic move. It just needs to cool down 6 months, 7 months of green candles here in a row. And it just needs to cool down underneath the 0.786 here. Perfectly rejection there. But I think it will whenever it decides to do so. Now, one that I mentioned last time too was EOSE. EOSE got a full Bollinger Band expansion to the upside and downside. EOSE is Palantiring as far as I'm concerned. Now, I would like to have one final confirmation that is Palantiring. It could get rejected here at the 0.86. If it gets rejected here at 0.86, then you might lose some momentum. It might consolidate sideways over here a little bit longer before breaking out. With that said, this is a pretty parabolic bull trend. Upper and lower Bollinger Band is expanding. It broke above the 0.786 here very convincingly. This thing is in the process of Palantiring. This thing is working out pretty decently here after I basically brought attention about a month or two ago. So yeah, I don't. It could be extremely volatile when it hits the 0.786, or it can just push through because it's got enough momentum to do it. Hard for me to say for sure, but I wouldn't bet against it right now, looking at the way that it looks. Right. I want to talk about two or three more things. These are a little bit more controversial to talk about, and it's a little bit harder for me to kind of put my finger on it. But I talked about silver Palantiring since July. I talked about silver Palantiring in the context of the 3-month chart. I talked about silver looking extremely bullish because it basically was in the process of pushing through the 0.786 and going a lot higher. And it went to push through here, 0.786 and 0.86, and went for a lot higher after I mentioned it. It basically went from like the mid-30s all the way to like 50s after I mentioned it in July. Now, the problem with it is if you look at the monthly, it doesn't look too overextended, right? You look at the monthly, it looks okay. It looks like it has more room to go up. It looks like it's breaking all-time high here, actually, compared to that over there. Now, you have to zoom out here a little bit. I think there are problems here if you look at 3-month. 3-month is still very, very bullish, right? It's got a very beautiful cup and handle pattern over here. Matter of fact, the handle is actually extremely beautiful too, because basically hit the 0.5 right there. This is a beautiful handle. Now, we're trying to break above the cup and handle formation with a very parabolic bull trend here, but the 3-month candle is way outside the upper Bollinger Band. If there's a monthly candle way outside the Bollinger Band, okay, but if there's a 3-month candle is way outside the Bollinger Band, it does make me think that it's overextended. I don't know whether or not it's going to break above this zone over here and make all-time highs yet. A lot of times, even if it's a beautiful cup and handle, it could still consolidate over here a little bit longer before breaking out. So far, you have the power to do it, but I just don't know. I think it just looked a little bit too overextended here on the higher time frame. It just gets me a little bit more cautious here. So I'm not as bullish on it as I was back in like July when it was in the mid 30s. Right now we're hitting a resistance zone here, and we've had like how many green candles here in a row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and things are starting to get a little bit overextended here. So I don't know what to make out of silver. All I know is I still wouldn't bet against it, but it could be hitting a resistance zone, and we'll see how it reacts there, because it is quite overextended even on a 3-month chart. That is one thing to kind of bring to your attention. Now, I want to bring another thing to your attention, and this thing has been unfortunately not working out quite just yet. But I also want to show you that even though it doesn't really exactly look like Palantir, what it could potentially represent moving forward, and what it could be doing that I think is potentially quite bullish. This is the monthly chart, right, of Ethereum. With Ethereum, currently it's still holding a 0.786. Last few months we had a few candles that broke above the 0.76 and 0.86 here very convincingly. It just decided that it doesn't want to form all-time high quite just yet, doesn't want to have that full bunch of expansion quite just yet, decided to go sideways and down here to consolidate. So what did it do? It broke back down underneath the 0.86 and backtested the 0.786. It also backtested a lot of things. It backtested the 20-month moving average over here. In addition to that, it also backtested the Ichimoku Tenkan and Kijun fusion here. This thing I call a katana. Last time we had a katana right there, things just went parabolic up. Last time we didn't really backtest the katana. Here we did. And when we backtest the katana, it's not a bad thing. This is actually quite a bullish thing. Higher high and higher low. Right? If this is it, then this could basically mean that we're going to push above a lot higher. Now, if you're also kind of comparing this side by side here with Palantir, I can also potentially see that we are also at the same launching pad that we were referring to earlier, right? Basically, this is the launching pad right here. You see a little bit of a high, 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 and then this higher high over here with a little bit of higher low right on top of the Tenkan and Kijun. Very similar trajectory. So I actually think that Ethereum is getting ready. I think Ethereum is going to go up higher from here, even though it's been going sideways over here for 3 months. A lot of people have been really kind of caught off guard because price basically went from like 4,900 all the way down to 3,100, and it happened quite quickly. And this is crypto. That's what it does. So I think as far as I'm concerned, as long as you're buying the trend of a higher and higher low, and you're trying to capture the higher low to try to buy the dip, I think this is actually going to turn out pretty well. I also am very bullish on this combo, and I talked about this combo before. It didn't really quite touch the low Bollinger Band, but it got close anyway. I love this combo of touching low Bollinger Band, pushing to upper Bollinger Band, and then back test to 20. This is usually what really truly start the bull cycle. It didn't really happen last time because things just kind of went up parabolically without even back test to 20-month moving average. Here, this is actually a very nice systematic way to do it. I'll show you a few examples. The one example I keep on seeing over and over again is NVIDIA, and I think it's better illustrated on the weekly chart here. If I am looking at this combination of low Bollinger Band in 20 and up here, there's an example right there. Lower Bollinger Band up to the upper Bollinger Band, 20 in the parabolic, right? Here's another example over here. Low Bollinger Band got close to upper Bollinger Band, essentially touch it, came back to the 20, we're in parabolic, right? Here's an opposite of that. What did it do? Instead of low Bollinger Band, upper Bollinger Band, and 20, it did an upper Bollinger Band, low Bollinger Band, and 20, and then downtrend, right? Same thing here. Low Bollinger Band, upper Bollinger Band, 20, went up. This is a pretty bullish setup as far as I'm concerned, right? I mean, this didn't really do that over here, but you see, it doesn't always have to work out that way. But when I see something like that, I usually get pretty excited, and I think Ethereum is actually looking pretty decent in terms of the monthly formation here. Now, when it comes to short-term volatility, I don't know exactly what it's going to do. I mean, it could end up going choppy sideways here for longer, but I just love the low Bollinger, upper Bollinger, and 20, and it so far has a pretty decent reaction there. Also love the fact that it's holding monthly Ichimoku Tenkan Nikishin as support, as a potential launching pad. So this is a pretty decent Palantiring candidate that I have, although it still doesn't have the full Bollinger Band expansion. As you can see, it's just kind of been going sideways here. It doesn't have that parabolic move to really push the Bollinger Band up further and down further quite just yet. But this is something that I'm watching. Finally, I still want to talk about altcoins. I still think that altcoins are setting up for something great. This is Total 3. Total 3 is the entire cryptocurrency market cap, excluding Bitcoin and excluding Ethereum. Total is just the total market cap. Total 2 excludes Bitcoin. Total 3 excludes Bitcoin and Ethereum. And you can see that it's been really looking pretty decent, even after a lot of scares. You have the August scare. You have the April scare. August scare was like the yen carry trade, I think. April scare was a tariff scare, I think. And you had the October scare where crypto was going to zero. On that one on Friday evening, it was just like everything just started plummeting down. And they all caught a bit. That basically was a great deleveraging event. All of these basically just attack the 20-month moving average that's rising. And all of this basically just end up having a consolidation zone over here of this big giant cup and a handle pattern. It looks like it wants to break about the handle, right? If you're looking at the FIT levels here, you can see, oops, I don't know what the heck happened there. If you look at the FIT levels here, you can see that it's broken about the 0.76 here pretty convincingly. It's trying to hold the 0.86 here this month. We'll see whether or not we close above, but it's building a lot of energy over here. Back tested 20 because it couldn't push through quite just yet. Found a good reaction. I think the next move is going to be breakout in all-time highs here. Now, you might say this, if it breaks an all-time high, then you get a full Bollinger Band expansion. It's about 0.76, about say around 86. Then this thing goes Palantiring. You might say this, Total 3 has a lot of stable coins there. It's not a good representation of the overall cryptocurrency market. I can do Total 3 ES, which excludes not just Bitcoin, not just Ethereum, but also excludes stablecoins. What is it doing? Well, it's trying to break about the 0.786 here. It's not as bullish when you take out the stablecoins, but it's still looking like it was just tagging the 20-month moving average. It's consolidating sideways over here for almost the entire year. It's got a Bollinger Band contraction. Contraction might lead to expansion. And as long as it's holding above the 20-month moving average, and as long as we're able to continue to work towards holding the 0.786 over here, then I think this thing has a potential to also go Palantiring as well. A little bit more of a controversial call here, I know, but I just cannot really be too bearish here looking at the overall market. I just identified 20 different tickers that look like they are either in the process of Palantiring or they could be candidates for Palantiring once a couple more conditions are met. But all of these are representing opportunities. Some have already taken off. I don't want to chase. Others have not taken off yet. I do want to continue to try to build a position in some of these. Anyway, thank you so much for spending half an hour with me listening to me yapping on a Tuesday night when the market is fearful, but the charts don't look too bad. I think I want to do something about it. Minimally, I would do nothing and just keep holding what I have. None of this is financial advice to you, by the way. I'm just a cat. I'm just here yapping, and I'm just here to show some pretty pictures. Alright guys, thanks so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.